What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. If you haven't already seen it, check out part 1, otherwise you're going to be pretty confused about what's happening here. Because we're picking up where Kakarot joined the Saiyans. Things probably aren't going to go as you think though. We'll be seeing that and more in this part of the series. For this video, we'll set a like goal of 4,000 likes. Once we hit that, I'll continue with another part to this story. Anyways, let's pick it from here. Immediately, the Saiyans take Kakarot on a mission. They're going to conquer a planet, and they're going to be able to sell it for a pretty penny. With this extra Saiyan helping them, it's actually pretty easy. Frieza already knows they have someone that joined their team, but he's still not aware that it's a Saiyan, although he's impressed. He gets word from Vegeta that they're able to get a nice planet secured. That new team member must have really helped. He wants to meet this supposed ally of the Saiyans, and the Saiyans have to oblige. It's not like they could just hide him from Frieza. So immediately after slaughtering this planet, Kakarot is taken to Frieza to meet him. And he's actually a bit taken aback at first. Another Saiyan was alive. Well, he doesn't seem too strong. I mean, he's actually the weakest of these Saiyans right now, although very close to Raditz. That's actually how they found him too, it's Raditz's brother. But as Frieza thinks about it, he realizes that this is good. It's another Saiyan that he can keep track of. Before, this Saiyan was just out there, with Frieza not even knowing that he existed. But now, Frieza has all these 4 Saiyans under his control, and he assumes it's the last of them. It's not like there could be any others out there, right? Either way, this is good. Frieza gets an extra strong soldier, and he gets to keep track of all the Saiyans, meaning there's no surprises in the future, hopefully. The Saiyans are sent on more missions. With this extra soldier, Frieza feels safe actually sending them out to stronger planets. The Saiyans encounter more fierce battles, fiercer than the ones they encountered before. But this is great. It's exactly what Kakarot wanted. It's ways for him to grow stronger. And the Saiyans easily pick up on how fierce Kakarot is. That's good. He isn't soft. When they first arrived on Earth, they kind of thought that it would have made him soft. But no, he actually seems fiercer than them, with a battle spirit that's burning very bright. The Saiyans continue their conquest, going around more and more planets, slaughtering them for money, going up the ranks in the Frieza Force too, and Frieza's pretty pleased with them. Although his concern still does remain. What if these Saiyans are trying to overthrow him maybe? They're far too weak at the moment, but he knows that they probably will want to rebel at some point if they get too strong, and he'll be sure to handle that if that ever happens, which it probably won't. So, are the Saiyans actually thinking about that? Well, of course they are. It's actually pretty funny because right after Kakarot met Frieza, he decided that he wants to overthrow him, take his throne. And of course that's what the rest of the Saiyans want too. As they continue their conquest and training in general, Kakarot is growing far stronger. With his great motivation and all, it takes him further. He even surpasses Raditz at some point, with Kakarot now setting his sights on surpassing Nappa. But he tries to convince them, don't go for Frieza just yet. It seems a little too risky right now. And not to mention, if they got rid of Frieza right now, things would go into disarray. They could really ensure their victory here. I mean, maybe collectively at some point soon they will be able to overthrow Frieza, but that doesn't mean they should do it at the first moment they get. They really should wait until they're strong enough to ensure that they can keep the army under control. Because who knows, what if once they overthrow Frieza, someone tries to overthrow them? It's better to keep Frieza around for stability right now. He's a pretty effective ruler, and he'll grow the army much further. In Kakarot's mind, if they let Frieza flourish a bit, that's just better for them because he's doing all the work. They'll inherit a much stronger army this way. And a much more loyal one too, especially if they're going to be stronger once they take over. And the Saiyans do agree. This is a pretty sound idea. They honestly just want to defeat Frieza and his army, but Kakarot's idea is actually pretty good. Take over the entire army for themselves. And wait, let Frieza do all the work. The Saiyans are starting to take a liking to Kakarot. They like this personality of his, and Frieza's taking a liking to him too. He makes note of the Saiyans' performance. He's doing very well slaughtering all these planets. They're locating very valuable ones, and Kakarot seems to be leading the charge even though he's the weakest of them. Well, not anymore actually. Frieza's able to note his massive growth. Now he's the 3rd strongest of the Saiyans. Not very impressive, but in that short time, he was able to get ahead of Raditz, and is slowly inching closer to Nappa too. Frieza sees his potential. He's growing very strong, very quickly, and he's very efficient at destroying planets, taking them and selling them. And Frieza also remembers too, having all these Saiyans together might be a bad idea. He knows they probably would want to rebel at some point, so it might be better to separate one of them. Kakarot seems to make them a lot more proactive, and that's good for Kakarot. But Frieza doesn't like the idea of more proactive Saiyans, so he decides he's going to do a little experiment. He tells the group, Kakarot's not going to be with them anymore, at least for the time being. Frieza tells them to consider this a shadowing program. I mean, Kakarot should have gotten some more formal training with the army. Of course, Kakarot is very effective, but Frieza explains this as Kakarot needing a more formal introduction to the forces. So he's going to shadow some more seasoned soldiers. He tells Kakarot will be shadowing the Ginyu Force, at least temporarily. They're much stronger than the Saiyans, and the other 3 recognize how big of a deal this is. Why is he being sent with the Ginyu Force of all people? They know Frieza wants to separate Kakarot, but that's an interesting group to send him with. Maybe this will make him more loyal to the Frieza Force. Who knows, though? So Kakarot is sent to be an honorary member of the Ginyu Force, and immediately, the Ginyu Force doesn't really like him. They try and get him to do the poses, try and get him to wear the armor, but Kakarot doesn't really want to. He wants to remain in his current clothing. I mean, honestly, the armor isn't that big of a deal for him. It's more so the fact that he doesn't want to do those stupid poses right before he slaughters an entire planet. The Ginyu Force is incredibly offended by this. But under Frieza's orders, they do have to keep this guy around. So, while they don't really like him, they don't really have a choice either. Alright, well, Ginyu lets it slide for now. Just because Kakarot was appointed here directly by Frieza himself. And you know what? He isn't really a real member of the Ginyu Force, so it shouldn't matter that he doesn't have cohesion with them either. They just need to deal with him for the time being, and then they'll send him off to somewhere else. Kakarot actually thinks that this might be good. He's gonna get more intel on a lot of the stronger fighters in the Frieza Force, because apparently the Ginyu Force is actually one of the stronger groups. They're basically their own mercenary group that works alongside Frieza. And he'll learn more about them and how they operate. Getting a better look into their tactics, Frieza's tactics, and most importantly, gauging their strength. He knows what Frieza's trying to do, it's pretty clear. But he's actually gonna use that for himself. It's gonna work in his favor, if anything. But there is one thing that Frieza is successful at. By doing this, he separates Kakarot from the Saiyans. Kakarot hasn't really formed too much of a camaraderie with the Saiyans. He's been with them and he's been slaughtering planets with them too. But it's not like he has a real connection with them. By severing that tie pretty early on, it makes it a lot easier for Kakarot to feel less connected with the Saiyans. Feeling less of a loyalty to them. Who's to say he can't do more of these things on his own? And hell, who's to say he could even trust the Saiyans? He was judged in the group for being a lower class Saiyan. He felt that he and Raditz kind of lagged behind. It's clear that Vegeta and Nappa looked down upon them. But it's not like Raditz really liked Kakarot either, because the second that Raditz was surpassed, he was more passive-aggressive towards his younger brother. It's a very competitive group, and this means that Kakarot isn't really too connected. The Ginyu Force goes on a mission one day. This is one of many that Kakarot's been on with them. But this time they arrive on a strange planet. The one that they're trying to sell seems to be barren at this point, which is weird. When they got here before, at least when they were gathering intel on it, there was a bunch of life. But now it seems the planet is dead, just a rock floating out in space. And they're unsure as to why. They can't really sense any strong powers here, but in the distance they notice something. On the other side of the planet, something that they didn't actually see in space, there's something poking out over the horizon. Is that a mountain? There wasn't a giant mountain like that there before. Maybe it's a volcano of sorts, something that popped up and just erupted, destroying everything. But as they get closer, they realize it's not that. It's a tree, it looks like. A giant tree. And as they get closer, suddenly, a couple of strong warriors come their way. The Ginyu Force is immediately alert. And even though these fighters are decently strong, compared to the Ginyu Force, they're nothing. It's a small crew, and collectively, they're not even stronger than the Ginyu Force. 2 Ginyu Force members alone could probably defeat them. They ask these soldiers who they are, and they introduce themselves as the Crusher Corps, loyal to Turles. Turles? Who the hell is that? The Ginyu Force asks what that tree is, and the Crusher Corps isn't really giving up too much info, so they just kill them. Well, seems like the Ginyu Force needs to turn back. This planet seems to be a lost cause. They can't sell it for anything now. Whoever that army was that they just destroyed, they must have been responsible. And since this planet is worthless now, it's not worth their time to stick around and figure out why it's this way now. But that was pretty interesting, hearing that name Turles. He definitely might be someone to look out for. As the Ginyu Force heads back to their ships, Ginyu's scouter goes off. There's another power lurking about. Did they miss one of the soldiers? A couple blasts are launched from behind. They're not quick enough to react. Golo and Jace are hit, and these blasts are powerful enough to actually kill them. This sends the rest of the members into a frenzy, with Kakarot wondering what's going on too. They were defeated that quickly? There's no way Kakarot stands a chance here. They look around frantically, trying to see where the blast came from, and then a figure pops in over the horizon, holding a fruit in his hand, and the silhouette of him. As he draws closer, the Ginyu Force is just speechless, especially Kakarot. Why does he look like that? He looks exactly like Kakarot. The man stares down the remaining Ginyu Force, but his eyes fixate on Kakarot too, and he notices Kakarot doesn't look scared. The two are glaring at each other. I mean, at first Kakarot was kind of surprised, but now, this man could tell. Kakarot's thinking of something. He doesn't know who this person is, but he could tell. For some reason, there's a Saiyan in the Ginyu Force, and Kakarot's thinking the same thing. This guy, he's clearly a Saiyan. And then it hits him, Turles. It sounds like a Saiyan name. This must be Turles, that guy that they were talking about. He introduces himself to the group, a bit disappointed that they defeated his crew. Ah well, he doesn't really need them anymore anyways. He tells the Ginyu Force they made a pretty bad mistake though, because now they're clearly against him. He will give them one last chance though. If they want to join and help on his conquest, feel free. The 3 remaining Ginyu Force members strike a pose. They're not going to back down. Birder lunges towards Turles, but his immense speed isn't enough to counter it. Somehow, Turles is faster than him. Raccoon then charges in too, trying to help. But with one attack, Turles is able to kill Birder, and just as quickly as he does that, he launches another attack at Raccoon, killing him too. Ginyu charges in, trying to launch a body change, but Turles is quick enough to avoid it. And Ginyu looks around frantically. He disappeared. He feels a sharp pain in his chest as Turles' hand punctures through it from behind. Ginyu falls down to the ground, with Turles launching a bunch of blasts to make sure he's eradicated completely. And then Turles turns over to that other Saiyan that was there. He lifts up a single finger, launching a blast at Kakarot's face. His scouter blows up, but otherwise he's uninjured. He begins talking with Kakarot. He must be thinking the same thing, that's why he didn't attack. And yeah, Kakarot thinks that Turles is thinking the same thing too. They're thinking of becoming allies with each other. Turles can tell Kakarot didn't really fit in with the Ginyu Force, and he says he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. He was with other Saiyans, and they were aiming to take power from Frieza, but now Kakarot's intrigued. How did this Saiyan get so strong? He's clearly another low-class warrior, that's why they look the same. And Turles comments, has he ever heard of the Tree of Might? Well, that's one of them over there. He planted one on this planet, and sadly was only able to produce one fruit, but it was more than enough to get him strong enough to defeat the Ginyu Force. The Tree of Might? No, Kakarot's never heard of it, but he's definitely intrigued. Is that how Turles got so strong? Turles chuckles. He's got a lot to show Kakarot. He does seem a little bit weak now in comparison, but Turles sticks out a hand. Join him. They'll grow stronger than anyone else. And Kakarot hesitates for a moment. He was working with the Saiyans to take over Frieza's army, and Turles could already tell what he's thinking. He's thinking about those other Saiyans. Well, there's no need. From what Kakarot told him, 2 of them were higher class warriors, with one of them being the prince too. They definitely don't care for Kakarot. He's a low-class Saiyan, and Kakarot knows this for a fact. And also there's his brother, another fellow low-class warrior. But Kakarot has no connections with him. And if anything, the 2 aren't really too fond of each other anymore either. Would it be really that bad if Kakarot just left them? Could he even trust them too? Like, what if they took over Frieza's army and then Vegeta's in power? Doesn't Kakarot want that power? Turles says together, they could rule the universe. They'll share the power equally. They're very similar already. 2 low-class warriors looking to grow stronger. Why not do it together? It would be much more effective. Plus, Turles does need some new allies. And what better ally than another low-class Saiyan, especially one who looks exactly like him? Kakarot's hesitation ends. He sticks his hand out, shaking Turles's. This is the beginning of something new. Now, Kakarot is still wary of it, and Turles is too. They don't really know each other, they just know that they're Saiyans. Both looking for the same things, but they feel that together, they could do something special. Kakarot has seen Turles' strength, and he wants that for himself. And Turles was completely genuine. He does want to team up with Kakarot. The second that he saw Kakarot, he knew that he should. Kakarot has great intel on the Frieza Force that he can use. Great intel on other planets that he can go to the plant Trees of Might. And together, who knows how strong they'll get. Turles welcomes Kakarot into the Crusher Corps. And now, we see the introduction of Kakarot the Crusher. It was perfect too. Kakarot basically fakes his death here. With the rest of the Ginyu Force dying, Frieza's not going to question the fact that Kakarot must have died too. But Frieza is curious. Who was strong enough to kill the Ginyu Force? And why on this planet? He does think Kakarot's dead, which is great, but he's going to want to look into this. He needs to know who did this. They may potentially be a threat to him. And even if they might potentially be a threat, it doesn't necessarily mean that this person is a threat right now. Frieza's going to stop this before it gets bad, while also still being concerned about the Saiyans, but at least one of them is seemingly dealt with. Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz are just as flabbergasted. Kakarot's dead? Well, he was kind of weak. They don't really need him anyways. They'll just continue with their normal plan. And with a new beginning for each of these 3 groups, these storylines will continue in the next part. And this is where we leave off for now. So what do you guys think about this part? What do you think's going to happen next? Leave any thoughts or suggestions in the comments below. I'll be sure to check them out to see what you guys think. As always, if you like the video, be sure to drop a like. And let's try to hit that like goal from the beginning of the video so we can get another part of this series. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, as well as hitting the bell icon to be notified about any future uploads on my channel, including more parts of the series or any other videos like it. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.